Hello students, welcome back. In this video, we're going to introduce our core gameplay mechanic for Factory Frenzy, and it's all about widgets. Little boxes that are going to be sliding across our conveyor belt that we, the player, have to interact with. We got to pick the widgets up just to put them back down. And eventually, we'll pick them up and put them down in the correct place. That's a key part of our game here. Because our conveyor belts all lead to one of three colored boxes, a red, a blue, or a yellow box. And we have to make sure that we get the correct colored widgets to go in the correct colored box. So let's head to the computer screen and we'll dive right into this core gameplay mechanic lesson. So I have lesson 3's starter file open here in vscode.dev, our core mechanic, picking up and placing widgets. I'm going to minimize our browser here though, and we are going to go to our Factory Frenzy folder directly and open that file up in the browser as well, so we can see what we have to work with. All right, so here we see our 3 conveyor belts, and it looks like, is that a widget? I think those are widgets that are kind of stacking up on top of each other. You're getting brighter and brighter. They're not moving, and they are just white, and they're only forming in one conveyor belt right now, right? So if we restart our game, yep, there it is. So that widget should be moving down the conveyor belt, and it should be like red, blue, or yellow. And they should be forming on any of these conveyor belts. So right now, the widget system is a little busted. It's a little broken. So let's head here and let's see if we can figure out how to fix it. Our mission checklist says, mission number 1, we have to create the widget data object. And we're going to do that. We're going to get there. But before we dive into creating the widget data object, let's go see what new variables we have when we introduce the widget system. So I'm going to go to the student edit zone and I'm going to scroll down. So let's see what we got. Hey, it looks like we've got some new widgets right here. We have a widget spawn frames. So that's set to 90. So it's probably going to spawn a widget maybe every 90 frames of gameplay. So if we're at 60 frames per second, what is that going to be? That's going to be like 1.5 seconds. So every 1.5 seconds will spawn a widget. We've got a widget pickup range. So that might be like, how close do I, the player, have to be to the widget in order to pick it up? Like, can I pick it up if I'm here, or do I got to be directly over it? So my pickup range is set to 30 pixels. The widget size is 36. So let's have some fun here. Let's change it to, I don't know, 72. Let's see what happens if I change the widget's size to 72. I should get a much bigger widget. Boom! That widget is way too big for me. So let's put it back to its regular size. And then I have an array or container of colors that I can choose from for my widget types. So we're going to have 3 different colors, red, blue, and yellow. And we're going to talk more about arrays or containers here momentarily. But no, anything inside of these square brackets is called an array. So let's scroll down. Let's see what else we got here. We got some new colors, it looks like. We got our widget highlight color, all right, which is going to be a transparent white, all of the red, all of the green, all of the blue, and with a little bit of transparency there. So that's probably maybe what we're seeing right here, that highlight color. And then we get to our gameplay variables. So here we got to introduce, we have 2 new variables for the widget system. We have a variable called widgets, which is an array. 2 square brackets. You can think of an array like a container. Right now, our container is empty. There are no widgets inside of here, but eventually we're going to start spawning widgets into the game. And when we do, we need a place to put them. So we're going to put them into this container, into this array. So I make a widget, then I make another widget, and then I make another widget. And we'll do one more widget. So I got 4 widgets in this container right now. The power of the array is that if I got to do operations or write code for each and every widget, I might have to write 5 lines of code for this, 5 lines of code for this, 5 lines of code for this, and 5 lines of code for that. That's 20 lines of code. That'd be a huge pain in the butt. So instead, I write 5 lines of code that target the array or the container. And I say, hey, you're going to use these lines of code for every single object that is in your array, or for every single item that is in your container. We're going to do those lines of code. So it's a nice way to optimize or make your program very efficient. Now, before we move away from these containers, every object in this container has a position or a spot that it sits in. The first object sits in position or index 1. The second object sits in index I'm sorry, the first object sits in index 0, 0. I put a 0 there. I said 1. The first index is index 0. Computers start counting at 0. Our next index is index 1. Our next object sits at index 2. And our next object sits at index 3. And we can loop through this array. Moving forward, we can work with the object at index 0, then the object at index 1, then the object at index 2, and the object at index 3. Or we can loop backwards through the array, starting at the object at index 3, then at index 2, then at index 1, then at index 0. We can also just reach right into the array. So if I say, hey, my container here, this array called widgets, I can open up square brackets and I can reach right in and say, give me the thing that is at position 2, and it would give me this particular widget. All right, so that's enough about arrays. We're going to see some of the magic here coming up. But for right now, let's talk about this second variable called widget spawn timer. We saw that we had a constant, and we said that we were going to spawn a widget every 90 frames. So maybe we set this to 90, and then we decrease it as our game plays. So it's going to go 89, 88, 87, right? 86. And then it gets down to 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. And when it hits 0, that is going to be our indication that it is time to create a widget. So if we look here, 90 frames, count it down, and boom, it just hit 0. It made a widget right there. All right, so those are going to be our new variables that we're working with. So let's take a look at what mission 1 has us working with. Mission 1 says we got to generate this widget data. Okay, so we are putting a brand new object into our game world, right? These widgets, these little boxes that our factory worker has to sort. Anytime we are going to put a new object or a new item into our world, we are going to do it with 3 functions. We are going to have a generate function that generates the data for that specific object, in this case, our widgets. We are going to have a spawn function, which goes and spawns the widget. And then we will have an update function. In this case, we are going to update our widgets. So right now, our widget, we have generate widget data, spawn widget, update widgets. Imagine if we had like a power up. We might have generate power up data, spawn power up, update power ups. Imagine if we had an enemy. We would say generate enemy data, spawn enemy, update enemies. So this structure is going to be repeatable. And that's powerful, right? Because if we can learn it once, we can apply it to a lot of different scenarios. So let's see what we're doing here in the generate widget data function. So it says, all right, we're creating a variable called random lane, and we are randomly selecting. So we're using the random function to randomly selecting from lane count. And if you look, lane count is a constant. You can stay here. I'll jump. I'll go to our student edit zone. Lane count is 3 because I have 3 lanes, okay? So the random function here is going to pick a random number, 0, 1, or 2 for us. And it's going to correspond to lane 0, lane 1, or lane 2. All right. And then what are we doing? We're picking a variable type. Using random again, this time we're choosing from the widget type constant. And we just saw that. That is an array or a container that has 3 different colors in it: red, blue, or yellow. So we're randomly going to pick from that array and get one of those strings. So now we want to create our widget object. This object is going to have 3 properties. It's going to have an X property, where we want to position it horizontally, a lane property, which lane number do we want it to be in, 0, 1, or 2, and then a type property. So is it going to be a red widget, a blue widget, or a yellow widget? And if you look right now, we are setting the X property to be 0 and the lane property to be 0, which is maybe why they are spawning right here. I really don't know. Let's change the lane number. I wonder if we change the lane number to 1, what's going to happen? So let's see what happens here. Hey, our widgets spawn in lane 1 now, so that's sort of cool. And if I change it to lane 2, they are going to spawn in lane number 2. At least they should. Hey, and they do. It works. Well, we don't want them to spawn always in lane 2. We should probably use this random variable where we are selecting our lane. So we're going to change the lane property to be random lane. All right, so I think that's pretty good. Let's check it out now. So now it should be randomized. Let's see if it actually gets to be random. So let's see. Okay, so we got one down in lane 2, another one in lane 2, another one in lane 2. Ooh, there's one in lane 0. Okay, perfect. So that is working. That's working. Awesome. Now, Our X property, when we spawn these, we're spawning them right at 0. I don't think I'd want to do that. I want them to appear like they're moving, across the conveyor belt. They're coming into the conveyor belt. I don't want them to just appear. So I'm going to take them and I'm going to move them to the left by their widget size. So I'm going to do, instead of spawning them at 0, I'm going to spawn them at negative widget size. Down here, tab to autocomplete. And then let's change the type from null, which is just empty, right? We could change it to red, or a no data type, basically. Blue, we could set them to yellow, but we are randomly selecting that right here, and we have that variable called type. So we'll set the type property to be our type variable. Now when I run this, I think I'm not going to see any widgets because they should all form over here to the left of the conveyor belt. And then we eventually got to get them to move in. All right, so that's working, even though it doesn't look like it's working. And it looks like we did something worse. We actually did something better. So mission 1 is in the books. Now, let's just kind of figure out like what mission 1 is doing here. We're returning this object. So where are we returning it to? Well, we're returning it to wherever our generate widget data function is being called. And so right below we have spawn widget. So spawn widget is calling generate widget data. It creates the widget object for us, and that object is returned. So that object gets put right here. And now we're calling that container, or that array we mentioned earlier, widgets. This is that container that's going to hold every widget that we create, and we're calling its push method, which means push something into the end of it. So right now our container is empty. So we call widgets.push. We're going to push something into the end of it. And what are we going to push in? We're going to push in whatever is returned from our generate widget data, which is the widget object. So we're going to push in widget 1, we'll call it. And then if I spawn another widget, when we push that new widget right to the end. And so now I have a mechanism to spawn widgets and put them in my array. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So let's head to mission number 2 now. Mission number 2 says, hey, we got to update and move these widgets because right now they are stationary. They're not moving at all. We saw it when they were on the screen, and now that we're generating them off screen, they never actually appear. So this finds us in the update widgets function. So remember, we got 3 things here that are going to work together to help our widget system: the generate widget data, our spawn widget, and our update widgets function. Let's go make sure that update widgets is being called every single frame of our game. So I'm going to click over here. I'm going to go right to our P5 library functions. We have setup, we have draw. Draw runs every single frame of the game. And if we are in play mode, we update our belts, we update our player, and we are now updating our widget system. So that looks like it is getting called every frame of our game. So what we need to do is move the widgets. Well, remember, our widgets exist in an array. So I'm going to put a little line up here just to help us learn. This is my array, my container. And maybe I got widget 1, widget 2, and widget 3. And remember, those widgets exist in certain positions or indices: 0, 1, and 2. And so right here, we have a really powerful tool when it comes to working with arrays. This is called a for loop. It allows us to loop or iterate over every single item that is in the array, or every single item that is in our container. And we can loop starting at the beginning and working our way to the end, or we can start at the end and work our way back to the beginning. Now, in this instance, if we look, we're declaring a variable, let I equal widgets.length minus 1. So every array has a length. It's the measure of how many elements are inside of it. Right now, I have 1, 2, 3 elements. So this is 3. Minus 1 gives me 2. So we're starting with I equals 2. If you notice, that is the last position in the array. And then we are going to subtract 1 from it every single time we perform this loop. So the first thing that we do is we grab a widget out of the array. We create a variable called widgets. We go to our container and we grab whatever is at the position I. If I is 2, we grab this widget right here. And we're going to do a bunch of code for that widget. And when we're done, we come back up to our for loop. We decrease I, so now I is 1. And we grab a different widget. Now we're going to grab the widget that is at position number 1. That's this widget right here. We do a bunch of code. We come back up to our for loop. We decrease I by 1, so now I is 0. And we reach into our array and we grab the widget at index 0, which is this widget right here. And we can do the code over and over and over again. Now, this backwards looping through the array has one really great reason to do it. To loop backwards through the array, you are going to do that anytime you want to remove an element from the array. If you're going to remove an element from the array, you are going to loop backwards just like this. And we're going to see that time and time again. So now let's take a look. We're looping through it. So we're looping through our array. I grab a specific widget. I want to move the widget across the conveyor belt. Update their X position using our belt speed. All right, so I'm going to access the current widget that I have in my array, widget, and that widget's got a bunch of properties. If you think about it, we set some. It's got like an X property, it's got a lane property. I want to increase its X property. And so I'm going to do widget.x, and we're going to do plus equals to move it. So we're going to add to its X position. And we want to increase it at the same rate the belt is moving. And that is our variable belt scroll speed. And just like that, our widgets should start moving. I believe mission 2 is done. Let's take a look. Let's see if we get randomly spawning widgets to move across the screen. Hey, there it goes. Hey, look at that. Those widgets are flying. We're getting all of them are in the bottom. Come on, that can't be right. That can't be right. Oh, there we go. I was going to say, they can't all be down there. Now we're getting some up here. So we're getting randomized widgets. That was some weird random luck. Okay, but the widgets just keep, moving across the screen. And they're sort of like ghost widgets right now. They're not really fully drawn, I don't think. So let's go to mission number 3. Mission number 3, yeah, that's what I thought. We got to get rid of those ghost widgets because right now we're not drawing the full widget. This puts us in the draw widgets function. So we have to fully draw out the widget. So it looks like we are using a for loop again, but this time we're not looping backwards through the array, our container. We're going to loop forwards. This looks different. It says for const widget of widgets. So imagine I got my container. I'll just do W1, W2, W3, W4. When we loop this way, we start at the front of our array and we go through. So this variable right here, widget, will be W1. We'll do all of this code, and then we get back up to the for loop, and widget is W2. We do all of this code. We get back up to the for loop. We do W3 as our widget for all of this code. And then we move to W4. All of this code, and then we stop because we ran out of items in our array. If we look, what are we doing? Well, we're calculating a Y value for our widget, figuring out its lane. So we're getting its Y value. And then we are assuming that its color is our red box color. We're assuming it's red. And then we're asking a question. Well, if the widget's type was actually blue, then we'll change the widget color to our blue box color. Else if the widget's type was actually yellow, we'll change it to our yellow color. So we have the color set. It's going to be in this variable called widget color. And then it looks like we're grabbing an invisible marker, so we don't see the shape that we're about to draw. And we're putting paint in our paint bucket. The widget's color. It's either going to be red, blue, or yellow. All we need to do here in mission number 3 is actually draw the widget's box. Because right now, if you look, all we're drawing a rectangle, but we're drawing it for the widget's highlight color. That's that ghosty white that we see here. So we need to draw another rectangle. We got the right paint in our paint bucket, so that's good. So let's draw another rect. All right, and so now I need 4 pieces of information here. I need an X coordinate of the top left corner. Well, that's going to be the widget's X property. And then I need the Y coordinate of the top left corner. I think I'm just going to use this Y variable that we created right here, Y. All right, and then I need the width of the widget and the height of the widget. Well, those are stored in our constant variables. We saw them at the beginning here, widget size, tab for autocomplete. And then we're going to round our edges a little bit. So right now, we'll just check this out. Let's just do those 4 pieces of information. I should get some nice colored widgets. Let's take a look. Ooh, look at that. Red, 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 yellow. How great was that? Blue, Perfect. So they're super square right now. So what we can do is we can round the edges by putting a fifth piece of information here in the rect function. This is optional, but we're going to pass in the number 6. And that's going to round our edges extremely nicely for us. Let's take a look. Oh, yeah, that looks a lot better. Those are some good-looking widgets. But, there's still more we got to do because they just keep moving off the conveyor belt. I can't interact with them at all yet, but we are getting there. We're getting there. What we want to do next is probably once they get to the end of the conveyor belt, we want to simulate them falling into the box. So they should essentially stop moving. We got to get them out of the array. And that is exactly where mission 4 is going to take us. Mission 4 says, we should remove these widgets when they reach the end. So remember, all of our widgets currently live in their array widgets. It's that container. And so this finds us in update widgets, that function that gets called every single frame of the game. Do you remember that we were using a for loop to loop backwards through our array, and we have access to every single widget, starting at the end and working backwards. And we said this is the method we want to use anytime we want to remove something from an array. Well, we ask a question here. We move the widget, right? So we moved the widget. We did that in mission 2. And now we're asking a question. If the widget's x position is greater than or equal to, so here's the x position, if it's greater than or equal to the belt's width right now, so right here at the end, we want to remove the widget. So how do we remove something from an array? Well, we start by typing out the array's name. So our container, our array is called widgets. And then we'll put dot. And remember when we wanted to put something into the array, we used the push method. To get rid of something, we are going to use the slice method. And the slice method needs 2 pieces of information. It needs the position that you want to remove the element from. So the position, remember, that's like where it is in the array. We're using the variable I for that position. So we're going to put I in here. And then the second piece of information is how many objects do you want to remove starting at that spot? Well, I only want to remove the one widget that hits the end of the conveyor belt. So with that, we now have cleaned up our data set. Let's see, once a widget hits the end of this conveyor belt, is it going to remove? So let's track its left side, and that did not get removed. Well, it should have. I don't know if maybe it didn't save. Let's check it out. Let me refresh the page. All right, here's the test. Sometimes it doesn't save unless you click off. Still nothing. All right, I'm going to pause the video really quick and debug this. Well, that was a very quick debug. I hope that I told you that this was called the splice method, not the slice method. It is not the slice method. We put something into the array with push. We remove something from the array with splice. With a P. Splice. A slice is what you get when you go to a pizza place. Splice is what you do when you want to remove something from an array. So I had a typo there. That typo is completely on me. So now if we refresh the page, let's take a look. All right, so we're going to track that widget. Its left side, when its left side hits the edge of the conveyor, it is gone. Look at that. They're gone. So it's almost simulating like they're falling right into the box. So mission number 4 is all set. So mission 5, all right, so our widget system is coming along pretty good. We have these boxes that are now moving across the conveyor belt, which looks great, but we got to interact with them. We have to be able to pick them up. And so if we look here, mission 5 finds us in a function called attempt pickup. All right, it says for let I equals widget length minus 1, I greater than equals 0, I minus minus. So we've seen this before. We are going to loop through our array of widgets, our container holding all of our widgets objects backwards, starting at the end. Why do we want to do it this way? Well, we might want to remove something from the widgets array. So that's why we're doing it. And we grab a widget at a certain position. And then we check to see, is that widget's lane, if that widget's lane is not equal to, and that's what this means, an exclamation point with 2 equal signs means not equal to the player's lane, then we're just going to continue. We're going to skip over the rest of this code for this widget, and we're going to go on to the next widget. Because if you look, if I'm up here, I can't pick up this widget. So we got to make sure that our lanes are the same. If they're not the same, we're going to skip over the code for this widget, for this widget, for this widget, but we'll try it for these widgets up here. All right, so let's take a look now. We're going to get the widget's center in the X position and the player's center in the X position. And now we got to check to see if it is a valid pickup. That's what mission 5 is all about. It says check the lane and distance to the widget. So right here we're asking a question, and our question is always false. But we got to ask a question that is sometimes yes, sometimes no. How do we know the player can pick up a widget? For example, if I'm over here, can I pick up that widget? What if I'm closer to it? Where is my range that I can actually pick up a widget? Well, I think we had a variable in our constants. Let's go check our student edit zone. Do you see we got widget pickup range? It's 30. So that is going to help us out here. So we can be 30 pixels away from the center of our widget on either side. Let's actually go to a whiteboard here, and let's actually try to explain this out just a little bit. I think maybe a picture would help us. It would be helpful here. So imagine here is the widget. Okay, so here's my widget. I'll put a W here, W. And there is its center, all right? And we know our, what is it? Our pickup range is 30 pixels. So as long as the center of my player is 30 pixels to the right or 30 pixels to the left, I am okay, and I should be able to pick up my widget. So for example, if my player's center was right here, I can pick that widget up. I'm within my range. If I move my player, if I say, okay, what if I put him over here? Well, that's not really the center, but you get the idea. Maybe you don't get the idea because I did a really bad job drawing that. That center, I should be able to pick up the widget. But if I move the player outside of that range, all right, so if we're maybe right here is the center of my player, now I'm too far away. I should not be able to pick it up. So I got to be within that range. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take the widget's center, all right, widget's center, and we're going to subtract the player's center. And if that difference is less than or equal to our pickup range, it means we got a good pickup. It's time to pick it up. Pick it up. There's just one problem, right? There's one problem. If we look here, when we are behind the player or behind the widget, and when we are in front of the widget, these values will flip-flop. They could change. We could have negative values. We could have positive values. And so what we're going to do is we are going to actually take the absolute value of both sides of this side. So the absolute value, because we just want the distance. So if you think about like a number line, 0, -1, -2, 1, 2. If I put a point here, okay, that value is +2. And if I put a point here, that value is -2. But if I take what is known as the absolute value of -2, so the absolute value of -2 is +2. And the absolute value of +2 is +2. What the absolute value represents is the distance away from 0 in this case. So I'm 2 units away from 0. And I am 2 units away from 0. And that's exactly what we want here. We just want the distance away from the center. We don't really care if it's positive or negative. So let's head to the computer screen and let's tie this math into our check here. So we're going to go back down to mission number 5, and we are going to ask that particular question. I'm going to say if the absolute value, and so ABS is our absolute value function. And we just defined those variables, widget center X and player center X. So we're going to use those here. Widget center X, I'm going to go down and do a tab for autocomplete, minus player center X. All right, tab for autocomplete. If that is less than or equal to our widget pickup radius. Tab for autocomplete on that, okay? So now we know it is time to pick up our widget. And it looks like mission 6 puts us right here. We got to pick that widget. Pick that widget up. It says pick up the nearby widget. Store it on the player and remove it from the belt. Store it on the player. How are we going to store it on the player? Well, let's go look and see what the player object has. So I'm going to jump. You can stay here. I'm going to jump to our gameplay variables. It looks like our player object has 3 properties, X, lane, and held widget. And right now, held widget is equal to none. If we're going to pick a widget up, I want to change this property to be the widget we just picked up. So if we look here, we're looping through all of our widgets, and I have one of them right here, widget. That's the variable I'm going to work with. So I'm going to take the player's held widget property, so player.held widget, and I'm going to set it equal to the current widget that we are on. Now that I've picked that widget up, I'm going to remove it from its current array. I'm going to take it out of the array of all the other widgets because now it belongs to the player. So we just saw how to do that. Widget.splice, not slice, we're going to splice. We're going to splice at position I, and we're only going to get rid of one of them. All right, let's see what happens if we run our game. Are we going to actually pick these things up? Well, I guess we should probably figure out how we pick them up. Whoa. Well, it's spacebar. We'll look at that in a second, but it's like I just ate it. I ate it, but then I can't pick up anything else. So if I refresh the game, space is going to be our pickup. We'll go verify that. So if I hit space, it looks like I pick it up. And I don't know what I do. Did I just eat it? Did I inhale it? I'm not really sure. So we know there is a key pressed function, right? Key pressed. This is a P5 function that's going to run anytime we press a key. We got it for enter, for resetting our game, for our debug lose screen. And then we have if key is equal to space, we are going to handle our space action. So that does the space right here. And so it says if player.heldWidget is equal to null, all right, we are going to attempt our pickup. That's the function we just called. But if it's not equal to null, the else statement, meaning we are holding a widget, now we're calling a place widget function. So it looks like our space bar is mapped to this, and we are either going to call the attempt pickup if we're not holding a widget, but if we are holding a widget, we're going to call place widget. All right, and so that's what we just did here. We did attempt pickup. So I can pick up one widget. That makes sense, right? I can pick up one. I can inhale it like Kirby from Nintendo. But then I'm holding one, so now because I'm holding one, it's not going to let me do it again. It's like I'm trying to place the widget. So let's go see what mission number 7 has us do. Ooh, mission number 7 has us display the held widget. Draw the held widget above the player. Only show it when the player is carrying one. So this puts us in our draw player function. So we were drawing the player's body, their visor, and now it says if false. So we're asking a question. And we got a bunch of draw code here to draw. It looks like a widget, right? We're drawing the widget color, widget highlight color. So when do we want to draw the widget that a player is holding? Well, we only want to do it if that player's held widget property is not equal to null. So let's just take a look at how we want to write that. So we can say player held widget not equal to, so exclamation, equal sign, and then we'll put the null variable. So meaning it's not empty. We're holding some data. And if that's the case, we should now see that widget that we can like carry around. So no more Kirbying it. We're not going to Kirby. I pick it up. Hey, look at that. I'm carrying it with me. Wherever I go, it goes. But right now, I've only done one part of the puzzle. I can pick it up, but I cannot put it down. And I got to put this thing down because I want to drop it right here in the red conveyor belt container because eventually that's going to score me a lot of points. So let's go look at our last mission, mission number 8. Perfect. Mission 8 is all about placing the widget down. So now we have the widget. So if I press space and I'm holding a widget, we are going to call this place widget function. We saw that code in action. So now let's look what we're doing. We're grabbing our widget. Our widget is coming from the player's held widget property. We just had set that. I'm getting the widget's X position and the lane. So we're setting the X position and the lane of the widget. And now we need to place it. So to place it, I am going to put it back into our array, back into our container of widgets, because the player is now putting it down. It doesn't belong to them anymore. It's going to go back into our container. And how do I put something in my container? I use the push method. And what am I going to push into the end of that container? Is my variable widget, which we grabbed from the player's held widget property. Woo, that's kind of cool. But now the player should have dropped their widget, right? So right now, if I run this, I think if we run this right now, let's just check. I can pick one up. I'm going to hit space to pick it up. I picked it up. I can put it down. Oh, but I'm still holding it. I'm like holding an infinite number of widgets. That's not right, because what we need to do is once we put it back into the container, the array of our general widgets, we have to remove it from the player. So we're going to take our player's held widget property, and we're going to set it back to null because the player is no longer holding any widgets. Let's test this out. Let's see our whole widget system in action. All right, so we're moving, our widgets are spawning. I can pick it up and I can put it down. I can pick another one up, I can put it down. I can pick it up, I can put it down. Perfect, we can get them in the right lane. Hey, this is super cool. I can already see the gameplay here and how this is gonna get really hectic as these conveyor belts speed up and move faster and faster and faster. All right, I think this is a great place to stop here for this video. We introduced our core gameplay mechanic here of our widget system. We can pick widgets up, we can put widgets down. Our widgets spawn off the screen and move across the conveyor belt until they get to the end of that conveyor belt where they fall into a box. Hopefully, they fall into the right colored box because when they do, we'll reward some points. And if they don't, well, we'll have to figure out some punishment system for our player. And we'll do that in some of our upcoming videos. So I will see you in that next video.